Hello and welcome to the third episode of this virtual panel discussion on brands of Bharat, where we discuss strategies, best practices, and efforts made by brands to tap the attention of the Bharat consumer. So, in the new Bharat, we are witnessing consumer expectations uh, uh, rising every time, and brands aiming to capture different target segments in ways like never before. Uh, Changes in purchasing patterns, media consumption, and the ever evolving mediums have led homegrown brands to experiment with their marketing strategies and basically just shift the landscape towards being vocal for local. So, in this episode, we'll try to delve into the new and innovative ways that these marketers are reaching out to different segments in order to achieve their objective and the challenges they foresee in the industry for marketers. We would also like to thank Nukkad by Stage for helping facilitate this discussion. Thank you, Runa. If you guys don't know already, then Nukkad by Stage is a premium and sensible content company for Bharat. They have a monthly reach of about 80 million in tier 1, 2, and 3 towns. They're also empowering, and their content is a little bit on the thought leadership side, and they've created successful stories for many clients across sectors. You name it, BFSI, insurance, personal hygiene, they are there, right? So now let's quickly get into the intros part, and in no particular order, I want to welcome Abhinav Iyer, who is GM Marketing and Strategy at the Muthoot Group. Hi, Abhinav.
Hi Rahul, thank you for this opportunity.
Pleasure. Let me welcome Karthik Nagarajan, who is the Chief Content Officer at Wavemaker. Hi, Karthik.
Hi Rahul. Hi everyone.
Next,
Hi.
we have Yogin Vora, who leads performance at HDFC Life. Welcome, Yogin.
Hi Rahul, thank you. Thanks a lot.
And my co-host today will be Runa Sinha, who heads revenue for Nukkad by Stage. Hi, Runa.
Hello, Rahul. Hello, everybody. Really happy to meet you, everybody. Yeah.
Okay, so guys, you all know that 2020 has been the year of unprecedented changes, both for markets and marketers. So we're seeing a new Bharat emerging, and also we're seeing a strong shift towards vocal for local. And I want to know all of your thoughts about consumer expectations from homegrown brands. And Abhinav, will start with you, then Yogin and Karthik will come in, right, in about 2 minutes.
Okay, so thank you Rahul for that question. When you talk about expectations, and if I talk within the domain of financial services and gold loan in particular, which is our main product, flagship product. See, end of the day, a consumer is someone for us who looks at us as a catalyst. He has a need, he wants it to be fulfilled, and he wants the brand help him achieve his objective. So when people often try to ask us, how do you define yourselves? So we define ourselves as the those who empower society to unlock the true potential of their emotional currency, which is gold. So they look at us as a catalyst who helps them achieve their objectives, make things easy for them, because the typical rural semi-urban consumer would want things to be far more simpler for him. So with 40,000 employees, our employees are local to those areas from where they come. So they speak the native language, the local dialect. They're one among them. So in very many ways, we try to make things simple for them, and we try to play that role of a catalyst, and we thus try to meet their expectations of making things easy. The other thing which I'd like to point here, I'm probably overshooting the time with your permission, but the other expectation that a consumer, a typical gold loan consumer has, is he's letting go of his emotional asset, which is his family gold or his family asset. And for that, one important parameter or asset or a tenet which the brand needs to have is that of very high degree of trust. The consumer needs to have immense implicit faith and trust in the brand. And with our network, with our size, with our legacy of 133 years into business and 800 years into family business, this asset of trust is something which we keep very close to our heart, very close to our chest, and it works tremendously well. So I'd say making things easy, serve as a catalyst as one expectation, and trust is a second and a more important expectation, I think, which we fare well on those two parameters.
Yeah. I completely agree with what Abhinav said, and Muthoot is a great example of a very, very successful, powerful homegrown brand. See, to me, I think if I have to add to the list that Abhinav had said, see, I'll also say that consumers will expect homegrown brands to understand them culturally better, right?
Hmm.
Now, what this means is understanding the nuances of the culture. This is not a homogeneous country like the US or Italy or France, etc. It's extremely heterogeneous culture. So communication has to be very, very localized.
Hmm.
So understanding that and being sensitive to that, and being sensitive to how we are geographically, linguistically, I think all of that will be a very, very key expectation from a homegrown brand.
So when I look around, saying that in 2020, yes, that has been a year wherein we have seen a lot of ups and downs. And for a brand like us, we have tried always to understand the customer, to always do what rightly Karthik said, that customize the communication accordingly. That has been really our strength in that way in last 2020, and we have not gone saying that okay, we will stop marketing or we will not reach out to customer. We have been always listening and doing whatever the brand or the consumer requires over there. So overall, as a brand, we have always been active throughout the time of 2020, and we have been more aggressive because this was a time where people needed everything. All the industries were impacted. So as a brand, we understood what we actually had to stand for, not to exploit any people are into problems, the fear. So not to exploit as a COVID, as that this is a communication you have to come out with. So we never came up with something like this. And what Karthik rightly said, you have to stand with the consumer. We have to understand the new changes which is coming up, and we moved with that. So yes, that has been really for us really good 2020, and we have worked overall as a brand, which has helped us to strategize the approaches, making entire marketing communication a way for digital marketing in a way wherein it is totally highly customized to the markets or tier two or tier three, any other markets in that.
We have observed that the target segment in the tier 2, tier 3, cities, they kind of, their characteristics are vastly different sometimes, from the metropolitan. So we want to know that, in your, as per your, I mean, you are handling different kind of brands. So, if you have observed anything, which is like, in terms of their needs and their consumer behavior, something which is like very different.
So when we see the major difference observed, as what our previous question also was, when we realize the huge potential of tier two, tier three in the way the penetration was, because when you see metro, the buying consumption is really high there. People do actually spend there. But tier two, tier three, the population is high. So the difference we saw, they were getting into digital. They were understanding the entire digital movement which happened over in tier two, tier three during this particular phase. We understood we had to customize every of the communication according to the region. For example, in North, we actually communicate in a different way to each and every particular market. So we saw they want to get into that particular understanding of how the product is, what is the product. They are more inclined towards. Then they will also go into consideration. So from the awareness to consideration, we have realized whenever in this particular period, if you do an entire approach from awareness till the final sales ROI, that is the major thing in this particular period we have seen in. Uh, uh, yep, I think that's the consumer behavior. We have seen the consumption is really high, and they are liking the video to be consumed really high. So this video penetration consumption has been a very crucial part for us, and we came up with a lot of education video also in that particular sense. Not necessary to push only brand communication in that way, to create an awareness of what is going around you. Be very real to the people that okay, this is what is happening around you. So not necessarily only look for final goal of ROI, but yes, be all the stages of communication we have been trying to reach out to the consumer so that they get all the portion of the essence of the brand the way we are very cautious about them.
Yeah, I actually have a slightly different point of view. Completely appreciate what you just said. But from my experiences, especially in the last 2 3 years, I don't see a huge difference in terms of content consumption patterns or even engagement levels for certain kind of content between different tiers, as we so call it, right? It's of course a known story that economically also we can no longer say that the urban audience is more affluent than the tier 2, tier 3. So that was also not there. So to me, I think this whole uh, if I can use a cliche and call this India versus Bharat sort of a conversation, I think to me it seems like two different state of minds that can exist with the same person at different points in time. Right? There are sometimes I live in Delhi. I'm from the south. There are sometimes that my needs and my emotions are very regional in nature, very native to where I come from. And there are other times where I'm completely not that. Right, I'm as much a person in Delhi as anybody else. So I think there's a different states in mind, especially when it comes to content consumption, especially when you look at platforms like gaming or OTT, etc. The borders are blurring rapidly.
I think I totally agree with what Karthik said. I think couldn't have put it better than what he did. And pretty much another reason why I feel that, it's a very, even with us, with about 5,000 odd branches spread across different parts of the country, and with the growing internet penetration in India, about 50-55%, with the growing smartphone penetration in India, I think the media choices are also, kind of blurring in a great way. And from a brand manager's perspective or a marketeer's perspective, that's a good thing to have. But as you rightly said, the same person can have different sets of choices when it comes to living in a metro city while coming from or hailing from a smaller town or from a different part of the country. So I think that's a very fair point to make, even for a marketer.
Okay, great. I think that's really nice to kind of hear. And in fact, like we were wanting to know on this particular perspective, what are the views largely. The next question is that, in terms of, digital mediums, okay. And since there are different target groups in the, Bharat. So we wanted to know what are the key digital mediums that you're focusing upon when targeting the different segments in the audience. And any particular medium is giving you best in terms of delivering ROI. So please, answer. I mean, this is open for all, to give the answer.
Again, I think Abhinav, you can go first.
Yeah, sure, happy to. See, when you talk about digital, I would like to take a step back and think beyond the typical digital marketing options that marketers use or digital marketers use. This entire ecosystem of digital is something which goes into the product side of things, servicing side of things, delivery side of things. And for a brand like us, in the last 9 months, I think we have taken a few major steps when it comes to bringing digital convenience to our consumers. So while we have been largely a brick and mortar led business network, but then thankfully, God willing, in the last 2 years, we have made major inroads into the digital ecosystem. And that's something which came us very handy for us when suddenly COVID struck in around March, April. And we are just about at the stage of about launching a few things. And so we have now launched a new product called Loan at Home, where we have enabled technology, video KYC, and people can avail gold loans from the convenience of their home or workplace. They don't need to physically come to a branch and pledge their gold. And, so people who are a bit hesitant or reticent to kind of come and do that can also avail that from the convenience of their home. We have developed a new app which helps online interest payments, availing online gold loans, and a whole lot of other products within our basket of 20 odd products. Similar convenience have been brought using Muthoot mobile app, iMuthoot mobile app, Muthoot online, the web interface. We have also encouraged people to come and interlink their bank accounts to their gold loan accounts so that interest can be paid online and interest and the loan disbursals can happen online. So the very fact that trying to strike that right balance between high tech and high touch is also something which we have been striving as a part of our digital strategy or digital roadmap. And taking that a bit forward and probably trying to address to what Runa had particularly asked. So since we are a pretty large band with with decent marketing budgets, we have invested in digital in a substantial manner in the last couple of years, and it's only grown in the last 2 years and much more this year. And obviously, we do an array of adopt an array of digital medium, whether it is search or social media, or probably a strong website which we have just revamped completely and made it much more user friendly, made it much more robust and interactive, and relaunched it in the last month, and a whole lot of other things which have only contributed to our digital media strategy. But on an average, I think we invest about 10 to 15% of our annual marketing budget into digital, and that's only going to see an uprise or a surge in the coming quarters. And particularly to answer your last question, I think Google search has delivered quite well for us, and I think that's one of the mediums which has done pretty well for us, even from a ROI perspective.
Yeah, see, if we look at platforms that appeal to Bharat, right? Like, one of the biggest, content-wise speaking, biggest tragedies was the going away of a platform like TikTok, right? Because more than anything else, I thought it was the greatest opportunity for expression for a lot of amazing talent in tier two towns, right? But I think what has also happened immediately after that, the kind of new platforms that have come up, whether it's Reposo or Trell or any of the other ones. Now there are at least 4 or 5. I'm not able to remember. All of them are doing so well. It's such a vibrant scene, when you go in there. So much creativity happening, and I think that to me is the way to go, right? Not necessarily what we used to do earlier, which is the Google ecosystem or just the Facebook ecosystem. So I think that social media piece has become now fragmented, and I think that's a great thing.
I will say, when talking about digital medium, it's never about one medium in that way. It's all about entire full funnel digital planning, whatever you should pursue it as. As a brand, we have invested in each and every funnel equally. We have been able to understand and reach out to, taking Karthik's point also, Ruposo and other tier 2, tier 3 penetration was really high. TikTok was something which should have sustained along, but it couldn't. Gaming was another thing which actually boosted up in this coming COVID times. We have seen that we have invested everywhere entirely to the full funnel. So we have realized it's a walled garden, right? In that, all the platforms like Facebook in that way, Quora in that way, all the platforms we have invested, and we have done the entire funnel management over there. So it's even Facebook in that consideration, Google in that consideration. Yes, but you can't take a social media in a different bucket and say that, okay, social media is something that we should look into a different way. But when it's coming to digital media, everything comes together. That is adding up in some or the other way, which is a paid or an organic way of getting your ROI into the consideration. So we have invested a lot in doing technical things around getting assistance about awareness assistance. If at all you do any campaign on branding, you get assistance that did it led to conversion. So in that way, yes, we are reaching out to all the consumers in that way, understanding the entire technical aspect of it. And going about the ROI, every platform ROI percentage would be different. But if you talk about the best of the best ROI, any platform will deliver currently is of course gonna be going with Abhinav's Google search. But I would say not justifying ROI only as overall ROI in that way. Every platform has their own way of working in an ROI. They contribute some or the other way to a particular media or a brand. In some or the other way, they do contribute that way.
Thanks, Runa. Abhinav, you just spoke about loan at home. And how well has your target audience basically responded to this innovative marketing strategy?
Well, are you talking about the rural consumer and the market? Are you talking about tier 2 or tier 3? Okay, fine. See, typically we adopt the entire gamut of everything under the sun that is there as an option within ATL, and BTL is something we would have tried. But with all humility, I think BTL activation at a ground level has always been very well leveraged when it comes to tier 2, 3 cities and rural and semi-urban segments of our business. And we adopt a lot of interpersonal or a lot of ground level activation. So one thing which I'd like to mention is in 2019, when there was the Mahakumbh, which had happened in Allahabad, in Prayagraj rather, point in correction there. We had organized a huge a setup called as Vishwas Ki Tijori, because we are synonymous to trust, and it was a huge gold plated kind of a tijori which had about 250 odd lockers. and people who wanted to come and have a dip in the Sangam could come and give their personal belongings there for free of cost and for as long as they wanted. Because that's one challenge which they face. Because where do they keep their personal belongings before they get into the holy dip? So we understood that need of the consumer and the typical people audience that came there were from semi-urban rural areas, while it was one of the most widely represented kumbhs with a huge percentage of people coming from abroad and metros also. But I think to understand that local audience or the rural semi-urban audience there, we to reinforce our tenet of trust with them, we did this. It was a huge success, and something very similar that we have been doing at a ground level across different segments, across different geographies as well. We do a lot of nukkad natak activities. We do a lot of song, music, dance kind of activities. We do a lot of single screen cinemas. We do a lot of wall paintings. We do a lot of we use key opinion leaders at a village level, gram level, panchayat level, whether it is a sarpanch or a gram pradhan, or it is an asha behen or an anganwadi worker, because they are the people whose opinion does matter at a ground level. So while today increasing penetration of, the other day I was reading a research done by, I think, NABARD, which said that probably 56% of rural households have television. But then there was another research report which said how much do rural consumers actually trust mass mediums is also a point in question. So when it comes to key opinion leaders like these, people from the fraternity whom they believe, see, meet every day, I think that makes quite an impact. And over the last few quarters, we have tried to leverage that as a medium, and it's worked fairly well for us. If I can, since you asked me about impact, touch wood, God has been kind to us. The sun has been shining on us. The financial year which we closed, 2019-20, we posted a profit of 51%, growth of 51% in PAT, from 2100 crores to 3100 crores, and our book size grew by 22%. In the last 6 months, we have posted another increase in PAT by 21%, and our book size has grown by 30%. So even in these challenging times, we have fairly tried to keep things in order, and things have worked well for us. And a lot of credit goes to to a mix of the environment. The gold prices have been at an all-time high. Gold loan as a product has become a hero product. Some of our marketing strategies, whether it is gold loan is good or Suneri Soch, some of our marketing campaigns have done phenomenally well. So a mix of all this has worked well for us. I presume the impact has been quite favorable.
I think, my next question is Karthik. Okay, especially Karthik, I wanted to know, since you have touched upon on social media aspect as well, I wanted to know, in this year, year of pandemic, okay, is there anything specific that you have noticed from tier 2, tier 3 markets, to the response and to their response to different mediums. Like we all know that newspaper is having a struggle, radio is having a struggle. I wanted to know that with response to each medium, what is your that what kind of difference or anything that you have noticed in terms of response to the different medias?
See, I think not so much about in response to different mediums specifically. There, nothing hits me top of mind. But definitely, what I've noticed about this is, there was a brand that we were working with, which I'm just giving you this anecdote because it pretty much sums up the year. Right? A brand which was originally came to us with a brief that we want to address like the housewife in Meerut. That's our core teaching, and then she doesn't understand technology. She's not empowered. She depends on her husband or her children, for economic support and all of that. Right. So that's we were creating a campaign for a Mrs. Meerut like that. But somewhere it was not really adding up, right? So we sort of did a deeper dive. We started speaking, on the phone to many of these people who are actually in Meerut, and people who fit the TG of the brand, etc. And what we realized is the complete opposite of it. Right? She is actually extraordinarily empowered. She understands and uses the word fake news a lot. Right? She's very, very technologically savvy. She goes through multiple chat apps, etc. And so I think she's extremely empowered, and she's actually in her pursuit to lead. So to me, I think the time has come for us to sort of reevaluate some of the stereotypes that we have of tier two audience overall, right? So I think that's for me has been one of the biggest learnings from this pandemic.
And how about the responding to the different mediums? Like any particular learning that you would like to share? That any particular medium has really worked during this pandemic?
Again, not necessarily medium. I think one thing that's very clear is when it comes to news, it's definitely going hyper local, right? There's been a surge in terms of viewership for news in regional languages, and we are seeing that in digital as well. So to me, I think regional language consumption has certainly gone up, and it's not just for video. Even for podcasts as a medium. Today, we see a lot more consumption of shows which are in regional Indian languages. Right?
Okay, just before Runa asks all of you your closing remarks, here's something I would like to ask. So, in a minute, if all of you can answer from your own observation, the top three strategies that stood out for homegrown brands, which helped them stay ahead of the curve, right? Abhinav, you can go first, Yogin, and then Karthik.
Well, I mean, just taking forward from what Karthik last said, I think one key learning from the pandemic has been that nothing can be more challenging than what we have gone through over the last 9 months. So anybody trying to predict what the future has for us is probably being very courageous, I'd say. And while it's good to plan and keep things tight-fisted under control, I think not everything can be planned for, not everything can be predicted, and not everything can be accounted for. So I think the ability to be more agile and to be more responsive and to be more nimble is something which I would take as a key learning, probably as the key takeaway from these last 9 months. And because even the consumer and the customer needs or the consumer behavior itself can depend on a whole lot of things which are beyond his or her own control or volition. So the ability to be more agile and responsive and be more nimble that way is probably one of the key things, because what I feel is the turnaround time for you to or a brand manager to understand the changing dynamics from a consumer perspective and swiftly, and then come out with options, dole out options for your consumers, is something which is shrinking. So with those kind of challenges, it's, I think, more critical for us to be more responsive and nimble. I'd say that, yeah.
Thanks, Yogin.
So during this time, I would say that no one had seen this current scenario 100 years before it had happened for us as a pandemic. So there is something new opportunity everyone had it to explore. So I would say I will agree with Abhinav in that way that every brand had to be agile. The way we have to be flexible in on the scenarios because we were never prepared for something like this. But this opportunity also gave us a lot of 100 opportunity to work on other things which we have never thought about it. So I would say that opening new doors for us, starting up something which we never thought that we will as a brand will perceive something like this. So like in this particular scenario where everything was going down, we did a first India's search form ads with Google. We are working with, we did a lot of other Google case studies that way. So I would say this current scenario of the way this entire pandemic is turned around for us or any other brand, we should never stop doing what we are doing. We should be aggressive in that time because that is the time when everyone shuts out. You should be aggressive and you should go live with the people because that time the clutter is really small and people are not even doing anything and you should be doing it for everyone. So that's where your visibility and SOV will increase that way. That's my.
Thanks, Yogin. Karthik?
I'll just quickly answer this through three things we actually done. One, and I'll associate a learning with each, right? I think definitely understanding the cultural narrative and the cultural insight really works. We did a lot of work this year with the brand like MTR, which are entirely in platforms like ShareChat and entirely in regional languages. Really worked for them. Second is to ensure that you're using key opinion leaders. Like I think Abhinav spoke about it at the beginning, to sort of target your communication, right? So we work with Pernod Ricard, which is an alcohol brand, and a lot of media dark areas in the country, especially in tier 2, tier 3. And we used, for example, in Punjab, a lot of great influencers to sort of take the messaging across. Right? So it's through very entertaining content, right? So again, using that to using the cultural insight also as a targeting mechanism has really helped, right? So to me, those are some of the big learnings.
And Karthik, Runa?
Yeah. As a closing remark and keeping it brief, I would like to ask all of you that what are the key golden rules to engage with the different segments of Bharat audience, this new Bharat audience to be precise, effectively. Avinav, you can go first, followed by Yogin and then Karthik.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll pretty much take my last point forward. I'll say that I think if I were to point out three things, one key thing which I would feel is, speaking to the consumer in his or her language is very critical. And for large brands which have large widespread presence across the country, I think that's a key parameter. So typically any communication that we launch it in about 13, 14 languages. So we dub it in 13, 14 languages. We try to make it as regional, as local as possible. Our print ads are pretty in local languages. Our communication within the branches are in local languages. So I think reaching out to the consumer and conveying what you need to convey in their language is a key parameter. The other thing which I would say, which I said in my last remark as well, is to keep yourself agile and nimble and try to nurture the ability to predict, if not predict, at least plan and be quick in terms of your response time to the changing scenario. And the third and the most critical is content is very important, irrespective of what you're saying and how credible it is. How you're saying is something very important. So I think interestingly presenting your content and uh, uh, making it in such a manner that the end user or the consumer can relate to what you're trying to convey is very critical. End of the day, you need to put yourself in your consumer's shoes and try to think as to how he or she would be looking at your content and try to make it more relatable and less salesy. And sale would eventually happen, right? A sale would eventually happen. But if you can create a content which is engaging and captivating, I think that can create more impact than creating a typical sales-driven content, which is a typical advertising content, which would probably tick off all your boxes when it comes to what you need to convey. But whether it cuts size and whether it goes through is something which could remain a question unanswered.
Thank you, Avinav. Yogin?
So I would say the golden rule, what I have realized or we have done as a lot of practices, is going 360-degree marketing for us, wherein not only don't look at consumer as a cookie or a device ID, look them as a future prospect. That's how you will actually be able to create everything relatable to them. Whether it's your content, whether it's video, whether it's display, whether it's a text ad, whenever you understand as a future prospect what they want and what you supply, it's really important. And in this particular scenario, when you start to have that recall built up with them, that will really be a long-term game, as because they can be a future lifetime value also with the customer will increase with them. In the toughest situation, how we are better with the consumer will also say that what will be the future with the customer. I'll say that way.
Okay. Thank you, Yogin. Karthik?
Yeah, I think very simply put, I think completely agree with Abhinav and this point. Three things. Be brutally honest. The consumer today, especially your tier 2 consumer, can smell bullshit from really far away. Second is be very empathetic. I think they are one thing pandemic has taught us is they expect brands to be extremely empathetic, and thirdly, be culturally relevant. Otherwise, they'll tune out very quickly.
Thank you. I think we have got very interesting perspectives. And Rahul, I would like to say that really brilliant to have all the relevant best of the brands today, and Karthik, your insights has also been of great help. Thank you so much.
Right, Runa,
Our
I can
pleasure.
only say at the end that tapping different consumer segments very efficiently is going to be the biggest challenge. But it seems like experimentation is going to be the key to success. On that note, thank you, Karthik. Thank you, Abhinav. Thank you, Yogen and Runa, for this wonderful session. Thank you so much once again.